Thank you. The changes, we will now have Brother Vendetta, leader of the spiritual leader of the Archangel and Revival Movement. You would like to come up there? Thank you.
Tendamari, Garvey, Regai Mazi and not Aura, Netumba, the Mumu Mangu, Independent Mwari, the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight, O Jah, O God of our creation. Royal elders, kings and queens, princes and princes of Great Mama Africa, I bring greetings on behalf of the Al-Kipulan Revivalist Movement, and we bring greetings of all these in the most precious, powerful, and bountiful name of our motherland, our Kipulan, Mama Africa, in the sacred spirits of our most gracious ancestors, and a prayer for oneness, hope, and prosperity for all African people on the face of Mother Earth. Going further, brothers and sisters, it's a matter of good manners. I thank the Marcus Garvey Organizing Committee for being so gracious as to allow us to assume a role on the, thank you very much, sister, on the platform this evening on this most important topic. Brothers and sisters, I'll be as quick as I possibly can. There's much to say on the subject of Papa Garvey's religious ideas and action. We submit, brothers and sisters, there's a great deal of speculation and indeed misconception about Papa Garvey's spiritual legacy. And we hope to make a significant contribution to clearing us of this issue. Some say that Papa Garvey was a Christian. We feel that's an oversimplification of Papa Garvey's spiritual legacy. It's far more complex than that. Some even say that he was a Muslim. And then there are others, in fact I heard very, very recently on the radio, that Papa Garvey was a Roman Catholic. So I must say before I go any further that this claim was made in 1987 at a so-called ecumenical service in remembrance of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, in fact in celebration of the centenary of his birth, at the Holy Trinity Cathedral in Jamaica's Catholic establishment, in the presence of the Prime Minister, so-called Prime Minister, Minister of the Opposition, etc. And it caused great consternation throughout the island of Jamaica. People like Mama Samad, who an elder, she did 5 years ago, and I had the pleasure of meeting her myself, in fact visiting her home in the year 2000. People like her and many others, the Rastafari movement, representatives of the Rastafari movement, were very angry at its claim and publicly challenged it. In fact, there's an elder by the name of Roy Carson, who said that he actually knew Papa Garvey himself and has not missed more than 3 or 4 speeches of Papa Garvey on religion in the 9 years that he was interacting with him very closely, and never heard that Papa Garvey was supposed to have been a Roman Catholic. So it's something that has caused great consternation. As I said, I've spoken to Mama Simad about this. She grew up in the Garvey movement. She was born and raised in the Garvey movement, and it's something that angered her tremendously. In fact, the person who made this claim on the radio had invited an expert, a white expert, who could not confirm, in fact, refuted the notion that Papa Garvey was a Roman Catholic. So we would like to put that to the side if we may, and move on. I should also say that I do have an audio tape of Marcus Garvey Jr. dealing with this issue. He was asked whether his father was indeed a Roman Catholic, and his response was, the beginning of his response was, well, I want to clear up this nonsense once and for all. Yeah? And then he went on to try and put his father's spiritual legacy into some kind of context. Now, to understand Papa Garvey's spiritual legacy, or as the wording of the title goes, his ideas and actions around our religion, we must look at, yes, his utterances and his practices, number one. Number two, we must also look at how these spiritual ideas or religious ideas were formed. That makes sense, brothers and sisters. Thirdly, how these ideas evolved throughout the his relatively short life. And fourthly, where these ideas were actually directed. Where was Papa Garvey directing us? Because that is as important as the former three. I want to submit, brothers and sisters, that this, however, is not just a intellectual process. It is a spiritual path. It is one that must open our souls. It is one that relies on our capacity to intuit, to tap into the spirit of this great, colossal spirit force that we call Marcus and Garvey. So it's not just about our intellectual processes that we undergo, but we must have a sense of spirit ourselves. Yeah? Certainly that's what helps me to embrace Papa Garvey and to understand Papa Garvey. The fact that I am a spiritual person, or strive to develop the spiritual aspect of myself. Now, I think we're all familiar with some of Papa Garvey's spiritual utterances. I heard my young sister made mention to one or two herself. I don't know what was said before, the references were made, but we can look in philosophies and opinions of Marcus and Garvey, where his references are represented copiously, and we will see various references to Christianity. What we do know is that Papa Garvey used Christianity as a frame of reference for tapping into the spiritual sensibilities of our people. We know that as a fact. And we know that he made speeches in relation to Christmas and Easter, but always relating back to the liberation fight of our people, always giving significance to the liberation fight of our people. So it was not, let's celebrate Christmas, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas. So it wasn't jingle bell, no. But it was really putting it in the context of the African liberation fight. Easter was about tying that in with the suffering and the sacrifice of African people, the crucifixion of African people, etc., etc. Is everybody with me so far? Yes. Are we all right, brothers and sisters? Yeah. And we can go to page 62 and page 66 respectively, where Papa Garvey has a message each on Christmas and Easter.
Which book?
Of Philosophy and Opinion. Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus and Garvey. Mind you, I have an old copy, the new copy, which is this one, newer copy. The pages might be somewhat different. The page markings I know are somewhat different. So you got to trust that over. It would be around about, 62, 66. At the same time, we will find that Papa Garvey was scathing about Christianity at times, punishing about Christianity, and even at times condemned and dismissed Christianity as the white man's religion. Now, I'll come back to that, the evidence of that. But let me just move to the next phase, which is how his religious ideas, his spiritual ideas were formed. Papa Garvey was raised in a Christian home. He, in fact, described his mother as a sober and conscientious Christian woman. He grew up in the Methodist church where he pumped the pipe organ on a Sunday morning. Yeah? That was the home he grew up in. That was the religion he grew up in. But that also had a context. And it's a context that we must understand if we must understand Papa Garvey's spiritual legacy. We must understand that Jamaica had been made a Christian country by the enslavers of our ancestors and the contemporary colonizers of our ancestors. Are you all with me, brothers? And that therefore the families overwhelmingly in Jamaica were steeped in the Christian religion. We must look also at the role of Christianity in post-slavery Jamaica, because Papa Garvey was a product of that. And the role of Christianity in post-slavery Jamaica was simply, now this must not be confused with the positive intentions of our people who embraced the Christian religion, but the Christianity that was imposed upon African people was imposed upon African people and used post-colonialism to colonize the minds and bewitch the souls of African people. That was the one reason of the Because we had to be, because after slavery, remember Papa Garvey was born 50 years after the so-called abolition of slavery. Slavery was abolished as a result of the the resistance, the powerful resistance. And the enslaver realized that they had to come up with more sophisticated forms of enslaving African people.
That's right.
Are you with me, brothers and sisters?
Yes.
Okay? So let us understand that. Let us also understand that throughout slavery, there was a spiritual war, not just a physical war, but a spiritual war going on between our enslaved ancestors and their enslavers. So they were imposing Christianity as a superior religion on African people, and we were fighting to hold on. We were resisting the imposition of this what was to us an alien religion.
That's right. That's right.
Everybody with me so far?
Yeah.
In the Caribbean, for instance, we had the tradition in Jamaica of Kumina. Yeah. We had in Trinidad and Tobago, Shango. We had in Suriname and parts of Guyana, so-called British Guyana. We had the Jugas tradition. All these are African traditions. In Cuba, we had Santeria. In Brazil, we had Candomblé. And it goes on and on and on. All over the Caribbean and the Americas, African people were fighting to hold on to our spiritual tradition, which was at the core of our culture.
Right.
And the oppressor was imposing Christianity as a superior religion upon our people, and we were resisting.
Right.
It became necessary for African people to pose as though we accepted Christianity, because we were punished severely for practicing African spiritual tradition. Let's be clear about that, brothers and sisters. So that after the abolition of slavery, brothers and sisters, many African people were still holding on. The black Christian tradition in the Caribbean, the spiritual Baptist, we had that Paul Bogle, for instance, was a Christian. That's just half the story. Paul Bogle was a spiritual Baptist. The spiritual Baptist tradition was born up directly from what they call Pocomania. Pocomania was born out of Kumina. Kumina was born out of ancient Ashanti tradition. Now the Pocomania was what the Kumina practitioners called they were in the hills, the so-called Maroon, practicing Kumina. And the ones who were in the valley, who were closer to the master, who had taken on more of the Christian religion, was called little Kumina, small Kumina, as a kind of a mockery. They're not even real Kumina. Little Kumina in Spanish mean little. Yeah, Pocomania. Poco and Kumina became Pocomania. Little bit of Kumina them are even, not the real thing. Yeah? And it's out of that the spiritual Baptist tradition was born. As you have the Shango Baptist in Trinidad. But this was using Christianity as a veil to mask African spiritual tradition. So during the daytime, people like Nat Turner was as Christian as can be, but at nighttime, they were in the bush, or in the cave, pouring libations for the great ancestors, evoking and maintaining and preserving our ancestral tradition. Understand this, brothers and sisters? So let me move on because of time. What have you said on that? But let me move very quickly. Let's just very quickly look at how the ideas of Papa Garvey evolved. We know how he became a Christian. Let us look at how he was raised a Christian. Let us look at how these ideas evolved. How it evolved from Christian practice to or through what we call black theology, black Christian theology. Papa Garvey came to a point where he realized that the white Eurocentric approach to Christianity was not acceptable to our people, was to perpetuate the mental oppression of our people. And so he realized also that our people were grounded in Christianity, and that Christianity had to be used to connect, as I said earlier on, with the spiritual sensibilities of our people. Is everybody with me? Yeah. Papa Garvey began to bring a African-centered, or moving towards an African-centered approach to Christianity. He brought in what we call a black theological approach to the practice of Christianity in the UNIA-ACL. Black deities replace white deities.
That's right.
Black angels replace white angels. the white Mary and Jesus became the black Madonna and Child. The African Orthodox Church was established. Now, this was also a resistance to Bishop Mosiah initially wanting to preside over the religious aspect of the movement as an Anglican bishop. So he wanted to bring Anglicanism into the UNIA, and Papa Garvey was resistant to that. And what was established was the African Orthodox Church. Originally, the aims and objectives of the organization were supposed to have been to develop Christian worship. That was changed to spiritual worship. And that was done for a reason. Islam also became a feature within the UNIA. Papa Garvey, those of us who studied Papa Garvey's history will know that he had a close relationship with Deuce Muhammad Ali right here in London. Deuce Muhammad Ali was from Egypt. He was a Muslim, and he also was the proprietor of a magazine called the African Times and Orient Review that Papa Garvey used to write for. That magazine was also very favorable to Islam, for obvious reasons. There's an elder by the name of Edward Wilmot Blyden, who also made favorable pronouncements in relation to Islam, even though he was a Christian. What had developed in the UNIA was an antagonism and a resentment towards Christianity over a period of time. People began to question the Christian religion because of how they were treated by the very people who imposed Christianity upon them. Where were these ideas directed? African spiritual orthodoxy. We beg to suggest that the Papa Garvey was guiding us towards African spiritual orthodoxy. Yes, indeed. Now, I just want to share a few of Papa Garvey's words very quickly, brothers and sisters, and I wrap up because of time. Actually, I'm going to have about 5 minutes. I'll just pick that up if you can. 10-9-1. Now, Papa Garvey, in his utterance, said, the Negro, and I'm using the word Negro deliberately, not only because Papa Garvey used it, but I want to emphasize that Papa Garvey was evolving. So he used the word Negro, not because he thought we were Negroes, but that was the currency at the time. That was the terminology that was used, that all people responded to. Many people wouldn't even respond to black. If Papa Garvey came with a different religion, all people would reject it. Are you with me, brothers and sisters? Yeah? He says the Negro is now accepting the religion of the real Christ, not the property-robbing, gold-stealing, diamond-exploiting Christ, but the Christ of love, justice, and mercy. The Negro wants no more of the white man's religion as it applies to his race, for it is a lie and a farce. It is propaganda pure and simple to make fools of our race and rob the precious world, the gift of God, to man. And to make it the exclusive home of pleasure, prosperity, and happiness for those who have enough intelligence to realize that God made them masters of their fate and architects of their own destiny. In another speech, the white man's propaganda, we call it, in Race First, page 89. The white man has succeeded in subduing the world by forcing everybody to think his way. From his God to his fireside, he has given the world from his Bible, to his yellow newspaper sheet, a literature that establishes his right and sovereignty to the disadvantage of the rest of the human race. That's right. The white man's propaganda. White man's what? Propaganda. He's equating the white man's religion, his Bible, with propaganda. The white man's propaganda has made him the master of the world, and all those who have come in contact with and accepted it have become his slaves. What? The Universal Negro Improvement Association is now calling upon 400 million members of our race to discard the psychology and propaganda of all other peoples and advance our own alien races and religions. Message to the people, page 100, somewhere between, sort out the actual page, but it's in there. It's somewhere between 100 and 190. I move very quickly. It is necessary for the Negro, he's talking about us Africans, to pay close attention to developing the appreciation for institutional life. This is the chapter on institution, purpose of institution. It is incumbent upon him that he also have and control his own institutions based upon his own cultural and civilized idealism. As, for instance, he may have his own church, but it is not necessary for him to adopt the particular articles of faith of the churches of alien races. He is not a Hebrew. Therefore, he would not adopt the Hebrew faith. He is not, by origin, a Roman Catholic. Roman Catholic. Therefore, nor an Anglican, because these faiths and religions were founded by white men with an idea. By whom? White men with an idea of their own. Right. I've got just a couple more quotes, if I may share. Yeah. In another speech, found in Philosophy and Opinions, page 33-34, the original copy. Papa Garvey says, if the white man has the ideal of a white God, let him worship his God as he desires. If the yellow man's God is of his race, let him worship his God as he sees fit. We, Negroes, Africans, have found a new ideal. And while our God has no color, yet it is human to see everything through one's own spectacle. And since the white people are now seeing their thoughts through their own spectacles, we have only now started, out late though it may be, to see our God through our own spectacles. Of course he's referring, when he says late though it may be, he's referring to slavery. Because no one taught Africans about God. Africans were worshiping God since time immemorial. That's not new to us. The God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, let him exist for the race who believes in the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. We Africans, we Negroes believe in the God of Ethiopia, the everlasting God. God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit, that is the God in whom we believe. But we shall worship him through the spectacle of Ethiopia, through the cultural eye, which was the last eye, which was then known, the entire African continent was then known as Ethiopia. In closing, brothers and sisters, in closing, in another speech, Papa Garvey said, and this you can find in Philosophy and Opinions, Volume 3, not very widely available, but I do have a copy. It's on page 60. Papa Garvey said, in an appeal to the European oppressor, you believe in a God, and you say he is to be the final judge of all men. Do you desire your God to judge you by your brute force, by your shot and shell, by your battleship and your dreadnought, and by your aeroplanes and the crimes you have committed, or by the kindness of your soul? You taught us about the God we worship today. We had a different notion of God in the early century. Come on. It was the same being, only we worship him through objects we selected, and then you came and you said, no, you worship him in spirit and in truth. I won't go any further with that quote because of time. Papa God is demonstrating here that we had a realization that we had an African spiritual tradition of our own, where we determine our own articles of faith. And if we want a clear understanding of where Papa Garvey was directing us, look at the Rastafari movement that was born directly out of the UNIA, the founding fathers of Rastafari. Of Joseph Nathaniel Hibbert, Leonard Percival Howell, and others were Garveyites. Leonard Percival Howell was
from the Cumanite tradition. Joseph Nathaniel Hibbert was from the Egyptian cosmology tradition. They were bringing African spirituality, and they were inspired by the life and the legacy and the spiritual manifestations and vision of the most eminent prophet and king. Papa Garvey used Christianity as a tool for guiding our people towards the return to our African spiritual African.